maybe this is the one very small window of opportunity where it's still possible. Because just today, Elsa, I don't know if Inka told you this, just today, the man who runs, or the deputy director here, informed me that even though he and the rest of the team here of the correction officers, they're all on my side, he said. I do know that not quite true, because not everybody knows what's going on, but he said, I know exactly what's going on. I know you're here because of free speech, because you try to inform the public about what's going on with the pandemic. I know you're a political prisoner, but I can't I can't talk to you in detail about this. I just wish I could call you in tomorrow morning into my office and tell you that the arrest warrant has finally been canceled and I can let you go. But for the time being, I was ordered to not let you talk to anyone any longer, except maybe your wife, twice a week for 20 minutes each. And these calls will have to be monitored by us. Why? I said, well, he said, remember how...
You just cut out, Reiner.
Yes.
Why?
Try again.
Okay, why I said, and then you disappeared, Reiner.
He can't hear you anymore.
Okay.
It's a phone line. We will have a 10. Let's see. Okay, that's our phone call every day, always.
You hear me, Elsa?
Yes, I can hear you. Reiner, if this may be our last only time, I would love to use it with a couple of questions I have. I know a little about your journey from the 2 interviews we did, including how you started with your father, how you laughed together, and how your father loved justice, but couldn't get it. He was told, don't follow that case, drop that case.
Exactly.
On the other hand, your mother totally believed in it, believed in you, and also your family believed in you. And you also had, I think, a natural spark. So you had your father's love of justice and your mother's belief in you, from what I remember. It took you a long way. I don't know that part of your journey at all. It would be fascinating one day to learn how you got started, how you got your first case, how you took on Volkswagen and the Deutsche Bank. But when I got in, you were taking on, the story that I know is from the point that you took on the corona, whatever it is. And I remember you saying shortly before you got locked up that if your 2020 self saw your 2023 self, your 2020 self would say, give him some meds and lock him up. That guy is crazy what he believes. What's your journey from 2023 till now? What has changed in you? Your 2025 self, now looking back at that 2023 self, how have you grown? How have you changed? What has happened inside you on this journey?
Well, the most important thing is this experience in prison, of course, changed everything. I had heard long before I had ever been in a prison myself. I mean, I have, when I was still in law school, we visited a prison at one point, but I have never been in prison before. So I had heard all these wild stories, which I didn't believe, about how there's many people in German prisons who don't belong there, who either because they have serious drug problems, need therapy instead of prison. And I had read by a Supreme Court justice a quote, and he said in this quote that roughly 25% of all the cases that go up there on appeal are people who are totally innocent, but bad judges and bad judges still put them into jail. I couldn't believe it. Now I know it is far, far worse. From what I've seen here in both prisons where I've been, both in Rotterdam and now in Bremerforde, I would say that roughly 60% of all the people here have serious drug or alcohol problems and require therapy. Most of them are not violent people. Most of them have committed some kind of theft or something in order to get the money they need for their drugs. And then there's a lot of people who have been put into prison for crimes they didn't commit. But this has only become really bad over the last 5 years or so. But this is so because the people who are in power are trying to convey to the general public a picture of we're in control of drug dealers, etc. So they're throwing all kinds of people into jail for being serious drug kingpins or something like that, when in reality they're not. For one of these people, I just wrote a civil complaint for damages, because you cannot squash a civil complaint. You can easily destroy a criminal complaint by simply telling the prosecutor, do not investigate, and that's the end of that story. You cannot do that in civil law. So this is going to blow up very, very soon, within the next couple of weeks, I believe, and this is going to tell the general public much more than what has happened in this particular case. There's so many people now in prison, not just myself, but there's so many doctors and other activists who are in prison simply because they did what doctors needed to do, had they all been doing what they were taught to do, just to show the people that they're still in control.
Okay, and my question to you is, do you feel you have changed, grown, that you're stronger, weaker, crazier, more sane? You clearly know more. You believe you know things that you couldn't believe before about prison. But you've undergone all kinds of things, including having someone psychotic beside you for several weeks. All kinds of things.
Yeah.
If you and your 2023 self had a talk, how do you think he might be different from you, if at all? Or because you're inside, you're experiencing yourself, do you not experience any changes? Like you're just REINER. So because I am curious, you've had a very powerful experience. You're living it, as far as I can tell, incredibly well. That's what everyone says. You are doing all you can, reaching out all you can. It's amazing. But is that changing you in any way?
Yes, it is. It took me about 3 months or so, 3 months into the trial, until I fully realized that I was up against criminals. It was my lawyer's team that took so much longer. All 3 or 4 of them tried to make themselves believe that, we need to rephrase this, we need to rewrite this, and then he's going to understand. But I knew at the very latest, on May the 3rd, I understood that I am up against criminals. And not just criminals, I'm up against people who have no human qualities. It took the others probably a couple of months longer. But from that point on, I was both angry, very angry, because I was thinking to myself, why the hell am I here? I do have means to get out of here, because, as quickly as people understood, my fellow inmates understood that I was in there because of my corona work, they put me in touch with people who I believe are very reliable people, and that is when I decided I would have to work much, much harder, and I would have to step outside the well-trodden path, and I would need the general public, the international general public, to understand what is going on. It's always the same story with the law. The only thing that really counts is to get the facts out, and once you have the facts, then there's almost an automatic legal consequence. Most of us, of course, have studied law, but most of this should be common sense. So the only thing that is really important, the most difficult thing, at least in Germany, not so much in the United States, is to get the facts out. And it wasn't enough. When I realized that I'm up against criminals, it wasn't enough to get the truth out in court. Yes, it was okay because there was lots of people there. The public was there. They understood what was going on. But I needed the public, the general public on my side. And that's what I decided to do. And that's why eventually I even wrote this criminal complaint and I made all these statements, etc. There is no way out of here unless we destroy the system. First the legal system, and then the rest goes with it.
I agree with you, definitely. And I have done my bit in terms of making sure that the people subscribed to me knew what was happening bit by bit. I'd like to go back to you. That's a huge development that you have had. You've always been an outreach person. You were amazing with the Corona Committee because what you did there is the same thing. I'm not trying to convince a judge about it's a scamdemic. You're trying to reach everybody. And so you were doing that again, only this time you couldn't use your own voice very much, hardly at all. I mean, you were really restricted. You were, it was in court. It was people like the guy with the mask and German stream punk and Claudio Jaworski and me. And, so we were your voice. But what was happening inside you? What was it like when you couldn't use your own voice, for example?
For me in particular, it's very hard to deal with. I can communicate in writing, but it's just not as powerful as when you hear me, when you hear my voice. And so I felt almost as though I was almost completely paralyzed, but not quite. What made things worse is that I could only communicate with one of my lawyers, with Katya. I couldn't even communicate with Inka. Literally 20 minutes per week, 20 minutes, and they usually cut that short too. Because at that first prison, which is really a psychiatric institution, people don't know it, but the inmates do. Because the two women who run the show, one of them is definitely a psychologist. She calls herself a doctor of psychology. I think and I told her so, she is a psychopath. Not a sociopath, she's a psychopath. But they are conducting all kinds of experiments with the inmates there. That's why everybody, at least in this particular state of Lower Saxony, describes that prison as the worst of them. It's a psychiatric institution. So this is a double whammy. On the one hand, I was getting hammered in court, and I knew that this judge is totally out of control, believes he can do anything he wants, and is not in touch with anything even remotely legal. And on the other hand, I was getting this very, very weird, and that's putting it very mildly, treatment of the white torture for 6 fucking months. When I couldn't see my mother, and my sister told me that she's about to die, and I couldn't see my mother. I couldn't get to her funeral, reburial. That, of course, left a deep mark. But I can tell you one thing. I never cried, not one tear. I never shed even one tear because this is like when my father died. For about a half a year, I kept on working like a maniac. And then finally I broke down, and I did break down, and I cried. But this time I didn't. And I swore to myself, I'm going to get these bastards. I am not the one who's going to forget, and I am not the one who's going to forgive. I'm not wasting all my energies on these idiots, because that's what they are. But I'm doing enough to shed a very bright light on what they did and who did it, so that the boomerangs of justice, as I always say, know exactly where their targets are.
I am actually stunned that you didn't cry for your mother, just because it's just a love bond. But I understand your thing. It's like you weren't allowed to go there. Do you think that you will at one point, maybe if you go to her grave?
Yes, I'm sure I will. And I don't know what's going to happen then. Maybe it's all pent up inside of me. I have no idea. I don't know how. It's like I'm watching myself. It's as though I have stepped outside of myself in order to survive this. But I won't. Yeah, but at the same time, I knew that I would have to stay calm and keep my cool so that I would be able to focus on the legal issues, which, as I said before, the court didn't give a shit about, but that I knew the general public must know, because there's lots of people out there, some of them very influential, who are doing a lot of great things for me. Just the video that was made by these 43 excellent people, or the other video that Vera Giraffe posted. Those are the things that make a difference. And that's what impresses the people, even here in prison. This one is much different from the other one. The people here are a lot nicer. They're not as hostile as in the other prison. But I should say, in the other prison, not everyone was hostile. There were 5 or 6 of the correction officers who actually came to me and said they know exactly what's going on, and they feel very sorry for what they're doing to me. This has never been done to any prisoner before. These 6 months of solitary confinement, that is constantly threatening me with a machine gun if one of our firearms goes off accidentally. We're very sorry, but you'll have to live with it. And I said, no, I won't. But you're going to not live with this, because I'm a tort lawyer and I have people who are going to stand up for me. But that was tough, very tough. So this is totally different. People are a lot nicer, and as I said, some people here have been very outspoken. One actually came and asked me for autographs for himself and his wife and a friend of his. Another one we could help because he was suffering from side effects, adverse effects from the so-called vaccinations. I put him in touch with one of my friends who's a doctor. So this is a totally different environment. But even here, the other side, the dark side, is trying to make it impossible for me. Just today, when they were told to make it impossible for me to communicate any longer, so that I would only be able to talk to Inka twice a week for 20 minutes or so. And the people who are behind this is, of course, the German Constitutional Protection Agency, the Domestic Intelligence Service, who are using the state prosecutor John, who was instrumental in getting me kidnapped, who are also using the people who wrote this criminal complaint that started all this. And these people have been trying to put so much pressure on the leaders, on the directors of this prison here. Thus far, they haven't been successful, but they very well might be now, but only for a few weeks or so, because there's another group of lawyers who are coming in, very tough guys, and I think they're going to get me out of here within the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so.
Let me just say what I just heard. They're going to get you out of there in the next 3-4 weeks. That means released from prison. Did I understand that right?
Get me released, because
Yes.
after everything that's been done to me, the kidnapping, for example,
Yes.
there's general consensus that if you are kidnapped, they cannot put you on trial in the country that kidnapped you. It is different with an extradition, of course, because there's an extradition proceeding. That's when I told you about this in one of my statements, I think. I don't need to repeat this.
Okay, I'm going to imagine they've released you. Oh, I have a question first.
Please, Wick.
He's gone again.
Yes.
Okay, I've got my question in my mind, and I'm definitely going to
That's
ask.
good.
Great.
It was a while. So
It was a lot. I got a lot. I heard him talk about a lot of his experiences.
yeah.
And also that he's really almost stepped outside himself, that he's got this calm self who's going to just do and act.
Yeah. And he has a better distance to look from outside.
Mm-hmm.
than it was before. So it's like he worked on the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's better now. So he remembers things that he didn't remember when.
No, you see,
things-
I don't know a lot. I would love, in fact, to ask you about those things because I don't know. Or
Please there again. Let's stop.
okay,
Wait. Yes.
Okay.
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 Before I go to my imagining you out of prison, I have a question, and that is, you and Inka, you obviously have a strong relationship. Can you tell me
Yes.
how it has changed? I would think grown during the imprisonment.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think that Inka, because of the kidnap and because of the fact that she was involved in it, I mean, she had to live it and she had to spend the night in prison there was for no reason whatsoever, just because they wanted to keep her there so she could get a lawyer who would have immediately got me out of this holding cell where they kept me, even after they had taken me to Mexico City. But I think Inka traumatized as well. There's going to be damages to be paid for this, lots and lots and lots of damages. But after a while, when I was able to talk to her via Skype, which is not, this is not possible in this prison because they don't have it. But in the other prison, I was able to talk to her via Skype at least twice a month. And after a while, when we were able to talk to each other and look at each other, see each other, we began to, I should say, I'm not going to say repair our relationship because it was never really broken, but it was damaged because we both of us didn't really know how the other one felt. I felt that I had lost total control. And I was not able, I should have protected her, but I couldn't do it back then. And I saw her crying, and I would have done anything at that moment. Had I had a gun, I would have shot everyone there. But I couldn't do anything, as I was, this is how my father brought me up. If you want to have a family, you have to be able to you have to make money, you have to have a job, etc. You have to be able to take care of your children, etc. You have to protect your family. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't protect her. And I was so insanely angry, you cannot imagine it. I always keep cool, and I sometimes get angry, but not, for a couple of seconds or so. But at that very moment, I would have become extremely, extremely dangerous had I had a gun or something else to defend her and me. But, after about half a year, we had, or maybe a little longer, it took a little longer to recover from all this. And for me to recover from this, from constant isolation and these constant attacks, putting me in chains, threatening with guns, etc. But after about a year, I think our relationship began to really, the relationship was even better than ever before because maybe it took a little longer than a year because we felt so much closer to each other. And even though I was worrying about her, having to take care of the dog and having to take care of everything without any money because they took everything from us. But over the last couple of months, let's say the past 5 or 6 months, ever since we've been able to talk on the phone every day, or we did talk on the phone every day, things have not only normalized, but we have been able to speak about our relationship, and I think it is even deeper now than it was ever before. We know we can absolutely 1,000% rely on each other and trust each other. And I know that she will stand by me, and she knows that I didn't do this on purpose. And I felt so bad. You won't believe that I felt so bad that I had to. But we are a team. We each other, but we're also a team.
I think that that's a fantastic combination to have both the love, but it's not just emotion, it's you're together, you're a team. I had the sense of what you have just told me, that you became much closer during your imprisonment.
Yeah.
One,
Yeah.
you needed her in
Yeah.
a way that you didn't need her when you were busy doing your law practice and all that kind of thing. And, you know, she was taking care of the dogs.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
now she has been able to show you her strengths and really
Mhm.
be there for you. And I'm so glad that I have seen this. I mean, I at a distance, and now that you're talking to me, now I want to imagine it's 3-4 weeks in the future, and these gung-ho lawyers have managed. You are free. The goal is not just freedom. The goal is freedom. You want freedom, yes. But what you were doing before the freedom, it was incredible. Like I saw the movement of the interviews towards the end when you were interviewing people like Cliff High and David Icke, that the whole thing about the global vision, it was no longer the pandemic. It was no longer, it was what's the whole thing? So I'm seeing you're free. I'm presuming, I don't know how much time you want to continue spending in Germany or if they would let you. I mean, what's the scenario? I mean, yes, you want to be together with Inka. That's a given. You're together with Inka. But you've always been a doer. So what can you imagine doing in the future?
Okay. The one thing, the most important thing that I learned here is that I should have been, I should have taken much better care of our relationship.
Just a moment, I have to turn this off.
Let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase this. I was going to say that there should have been a much better work relationship a balance, which back then when I was still working and when I was even after I had almost I focused almost 100% of my energies on this pandemic investigation. I think I was working even harder than before, and I just didn't spend enough time with Inka, and I didn't understand because I almost like real bull when I'm focused on something and I want to get something done. So I just I understood that I cannot continue doing it that way. I need to recharge my batteries, and the only way to do it is to be with my wife and my dogs, of course. But to have a real family life, and we both decided, or it was we who had to decide because Inka knew it along that in order to be able, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In order to be able to see what I want to achieve, we need to have a fully functioning relationship, just like my parents did. My mother was my father's anchor, so to speak, and the same thing is true for Inka and myself. And because she's much more introverted than I am, obviously, I think I should have listened to her quiet sound much more. But I have learned this, and when I get out of here, of course I'm going to continue with my work, but I will have not a functioning work-life balance, but a functioning work-relationship balance.
I am very glad of that because I agree that one needs that. Otherwise, I think that a lot of, they call them the type A personalities, they don't know how to take pleasure in the everyday. It's like, I could be dealing with another case, et cetera. And I think in the last couple of years, you've done a lot of learning on the value of this amazing personal relationship you have, this marriage.
Yeah.
And then work. Okay, you having a balance with Inka, you're spending your time there, but there are a few hours of the day which you would spend on this thing called work. Do you have any idea? Are there any interviews calling to you? Are there, is it past doing interviews? Because your whole career has not been interviews. This has just been a weirdness that happened with the corona, with the pandemic, all these interviews. Or is this your new calling? Do you have, is there any impulse in you that you have some idea where you're going?
Another really good question. The interviews, I almost conducted them, almost conducted them as though I was questioning witnesses. But of course, I was, at the same time, I was talking to people who I liked all of them. It was not a professional relationship, but it was more like a friendly relationship. And but I still use these interviews in order to collect evidence, as a lawyer should. Mm-hmm. Because in the back of my head, there was always this idea, we're going to have to have justice. This must not be forgiven. You can forgive, yes, but first there must be justice. Or at least the truth must come out, and then the people who are responsible, if they express regret or if they act like humans, like real humans who are genuinely or genuinely contrite, that's a different story. But first, there has to be justice, meaning there has to be the truth that has to come out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use all the evidence that I have collected. I loved it with myself, but all the others were still on board, and there's probably a lot more people now because when I told you about this new team of lawyers, there's a couple of lawyers there who want to fight this fight with us. And I think there's going to be more and more and more. And that, I think, is really important. We have to reclaim, get back what they took from us. I think that this is going to happen in a very short period of time because people, once they understand what has really happened here, they're going to get very, very angry, and there's going to be searches for justice all over the world. I just want to show them how to do it. It's sort of like we did at I know it's not my idea, that was Anna Garner's idea, with the model grand jury proceeding. It's so easy. Just collect the evidence, and then the rest comes almost automatically.
That was a brilliant move. I didn't know whose move it was, but that was brilliant. It brought together so much of the research you'd been doing for 2 or 3 years. Absolutely excellent. Yeah. And so you would see doing this again. Could you imagine doing it in an actual court of law, or again as I could see you doing it again for the public. I hope you would do it again for the public because, otherwise, how does the public know? This was lovely. It was orchestrated. It was amazing. It was wonderful. I would love to see it again. I would also like to see it in a real court of law. But we all know, for example, Nuremberg 1 was a sham scam. There wasn't a single Russian who was put on trial. There was, and then anybody went to the United States, Operation Paperclip. In other words, you do not want Nuremberg 2. You do not want a repeat of the wrongdoers getting ahead.
Yeah.
So
no, we want the real thing. We want the real thing.
Yeah.
Parallel to look to my work for first the Corona Investigative Committee and then ICIC, I have, and Dexter and some of the others of the International Group of Lawyers, we have been trying to get some real, not just a model of proceeding, but a real proceeding started. Dexter and I spent, I think, 6 months or so talking to the different tribes and different movements in New Zealand. who knows, but we ended up talking to Africans. That's a very interesting venue effort. I think, with 53 or so countries. We were speaking to the president of the African Bar Association, which is totally different from the International Bar Association. They're independent, and the president was very much interested in doing a real investigation so that people could really be held responsible. I do not think, however, that we can, at least not in Germany, that we can rely on the legal system. That is not possible. Not after what I have experienced here. I know there are a few good people still there who are supporting us and who have been supporting us. From behind the scenes, there were not just lawyers, but there were also prosecutors and judges who were helping us. But the system has been so badly infiltrated by the puppets that you cannot rely on them any longer. Not by a long shot.
Well, that will be very interesting. So you would, if I'm hearing right, you would see continuing where you left off with Dexter, because you were just talking to some African leaders, the African Bar Association, as you got imprisoned. So you would see taking it up. You know that there have been some First Nations groups that have done something, but I don't know if they have an independent judiciary. You explained that to me. So they have done something. Then there was a vice president of Costa Rica who had a delegation come and do a presentation to him. So there have been little tiny things being done. But what you want is a major event.
Maybe one major event, one real event. For example, the investigation that we had envisioned, or the president of the African Bar Association had envisioned for us. That's the kind of thing that would make the headlines, because we need the people to understand what's going on. Thus far, what has been going on in my case is they have been trying to put me out of business simply because I was making too much use of free speech. In other words, they want to bury the truth. So the truth has to be brought out. And once it's out there, once the people understand what has been done to them, over the past couple of days or so, there's lots of talk about this, what was it called, the Jerusalem Challenge? You remember the dancing nurses and doctors?
Yes, fake. Oh, yeah, why would...
Fake. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So people have to understand that. They have to understand that they were played. Even that was part of their scheme, to confront them with two totally contradictory stories or narratives. On the one hand, all the hospitals are overwhelmed, people are dying, the doctors and the nurses, they're working their heads off or themselves. And on the other hand, you have these people dancing. Now, I didn't even think about it. I just thought this is stupid. But a lot of people were angry and decided to make themselves heard and said, hey, we're being fooled. And that's what they had in mind. That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to be able to identify the resistance. And on the other hand, this also serves the purpose of making those people who still played along, who kind of swallowed their own, or were not able to see the contradiction, to it is a kind of an adding insult to injury, but at the same time, it was a maneuver to make it worse and worse and worse. The next step was then the masks. On the one hand, you must wear them when you're standing up, but when you're sitting down there, all this bullshit. People have to understand how they were psychologically played.
I think, Reiner, from my psychological perspective, I think there's even more going on, and that is that so many people are going, that was then, this is now. It's like they have it erased. It's like they're no longer experiencing it. There is really something that people can know it in their heads, and it's like well, there was a Holocaust. Yeah, just 17 million, 20 million, however many it was.
Yeah.
We can't. So there is something else. So I really love what you want to do. Like, you have not been, as far as I can tell, psychologically screwed up like these people who go, oh, well, that was then, this is now. You are, in fact, really experiencing it, and you would like people to really experience it, to really know it. I have a sense there is a huge amount of major mind control damage that is another layer. But I mean, that might be for another conversation. It might be something where I'd love to be part of that part, because I have, I really care about the law and I care about justice. But I'm seeing, I'm seeing such crazy stuff in the world around me, and I'm really glad. I look forward to seeing you out there, um, you know, with an invisible Winchester, because I don't see you ever really taking a real Winchester. Um, Doing whatever huge thing. If I went onto this, it would be taking the conversation somewhere else. But instead, what I would like to ask you, what message, or how do you want to leave people? The stage is all yours.
The most important thing to remember is a couple of things. The most important thing to remember is that nature is still there. It's all there. A lot of people who give me letters tell me about their gardening and how they're taking long walks along the beach or in the woods, etc. Nature is everything. It's the only, I believe, it's the only reality we have. And if we leave nature alone, if we keep the monsters from destroying it, will heal itself, just like we will heal if we're left alone, if we are left alone by the so-called pharmaceutical industry. And the other really important thing is that we need to stay connected. Now that we're connected through nature, through the, morphogenetic field or whatever you want to call it, but there definitely is a connection that is working, or else I think my dog Jimbo would die the other day. But he survived because of all the energy that he got. I'm firmly convinced of that. So that's the other thing. Nature is everything, and we need to keep our connection. That way, we are invincible.